Hi, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Zayin, Maseches Eruvin. We left off the bottom of Tes Zayin Amud Beis, the two dots, 6 lines from the bottom. So Dorosh Rav Nachman, Mishum Rabbeinu, Shmuel. So he said, Halacha, Yachid Noisin Lo Beis Hasayim. If you have a Yachid and someone is traveling, he needs to go ahead and be there for Shabbos, and he wants to go ahead and set up temporary posts around and using the halachas of lavud, right? So even though, whether it's, poles that, vertical poles all around or the horizontal ones, and he wants to use it, so we say for yachin nice and low basis of time, we give an area of 2 areas, I guess, for basis of time, which he says 5,000 square amos. Bays, if it's 2 people, nice and lahu beis hasayim. We also give only a beis hasayim. However, once it's gimel, then that's basically a group, 3 people. Nasu shayara, that's considered like a caravan. If a nice and lahan beis sheish, give them 6 instead of 2 beis hasayim. We give them up to 6. The Gemara asks, so shafka rabbanim v'avata k'Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda. Why you left the Yeshita of the Rabbanim, went like Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that because according to Rabbanim, right? If it's a caravan, we give them unlimited access, whatever they need. So the Gemara says, no. Hadar ukim Rav Nachman. One second. So Hadar ukim Rav Nachman. Amar Allah. Afterwards, Rav Nachman, he appointed his shamash to say basically darshan dvarim shamarti lifnechem tosay. Now, which I said before, you guys actually was a mistake. Biyadi were in my hands. Baram, however. This is what they said. Yachid, nice and low basis asayim. Right? If it's a yachid, we give him two basis asayim. Right? And if it's shnayim, also nice and land basis asayim. We give them for their needs up until basis asayim. Right? An area to grow, to plant 2 saw. And shloisha, if it's 3 people, then nasu shayara, then they're considered a caravan. The nice lahan kol tzarchan. Now we can give them whatever they want up into their whatever space amount they need. So I asked Reisha Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda of the Sefer Rabbanan, is the Reisha Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda, right? Because the Rabbanan hold that a yachid can do as much as he needs. If a yachid needs more than the basis hasayim, let's say he has a lot of possessions, so he could be able to get more according to Rabbanan. But this l'chayr goes so Reisha Rabbi Yosi Rabbi Yehuda of the Sefer Rabbanan. So it says mishum dekoy abu b'shitase. No, because Rabbi Yehuda holds like his father in the first case, so therefore it's not just a yachid. Also Rabbi Yehuda holds it, and therefore the halach in that case would be that a yachid we give him up to a basis hasayim. So Amar Rav Gidel, Amar Rav, says Rav Gidel name of Rav, Shleisha chamesh asurin and b'sheva mutar. We can have a case of 3 people that if in the closed area of even 5. Beisa would be no good, but we could also have a scenario of if it's 7 and it's mutter. How so? Amrlei, Amar Rav Hachi, the Rav said this. Amrlei, Amarlu. So he said, Araisa Nevi V'Ksivi Damar Rav Hachi. He says, right? Did he say this? He says, yes, he's swearing basically by Tanakh, by Torah Nevim Ksuvim. He said this. Basically, it's an expression that, yes, indeed, he said this, right? I swear, right? And what did he say? So Amar Rav Ashi, my kasha. So what's the difficulty? This is what he says. Dil mahachi kamas means to say hutzachul l'sheish. Let's say there's 3 people and they need an area of 6 base 6 base saw. Right? They need an area of 6 base saw for all their stuff, like their animals, whatever they have there. So the kiva b'sheva, and they surround it. They use these walls to go ahead and make a wall of 7. Okay, 7 base saw. Now, afilu b'sheva mutar. Since over there it's not more. It's not more than beyond 2 base saw beyond their needs, because their needs are 6 and they made 7. So therefore, it'll be mutter to go ahead and to use it. However, but let's say they only needed 5 and they made 7, right? Afilu b'chamesh asur. Then the walls are no good because it's too much, right? It's 2 base saw more than they need, and therefore these walls are not good walls, and therefore even the enclosure, right, is no good, right? Even if it was 5, would be no good. Now, the Allah Hadiktan, said, But what we said earlier, we said yesterday, we had to stay, which we never explained. And so l'chayra, it means it says as long as they don't have an area based on which is open. In other words, my la panimiya does that mean more than people? In other words, that as long as you don't have an area, right, which basically you have an extra 2 base saw, right, l'chayra, that would be okay. So if it's a case of where they need 6, so then if it's a case where they need 6, then we'd say that why is 7 no good, right? They should be required up to 8. So Gemara says no, lo panim mekalim. Actually, it means that it's free from you from kalim, from their possessions. In other words, if you have an area of 2 base saw large in the area which is not needed, that's what it's talking about. But if there are people there, right? Now, as they need more than 2 saw for the people there, then that's not a problem. It only means pano if it's extra from possessions, not extra from people. So even one person you can have right, or 2 people you can have more an area than is required. So Itamar. Shlosha umeisachamahen. So let's say you have 3 people. We said 1 or 2 people gets a basis society, and 3 people it's considered to be a caravan, and they can use as much as they need. So shlosha umeisachamahen. Let's say Shabbos started with 3 people, and one of them died. They no longer have 3. They now only have 2 people there, right? So the area that they're allowed to go ahead and enclose is much smaller. Or shnayim, outside. They're honking. All right, open the door. Sorry about that. So shloisha v'nitoyso. So let's say that there were 2 people, and then someone came in the middle of Shabbos, someone came, and all of a sudden a 3rd person joined them. So what's halacha there? Does it increase by basically depending on how you started Shabbos, or is basically how many people are around? So Shabbos garemus. One says Shabbos caused it. In other words, whatever happened in the beginning of Shabbos, that's what the walls are for Shabbos. Whether or not people left or people joined, this is the enclosure. And the Chad Omar, Diurin Goyer Garmin, right? The other one says, no. The amount of inhabitants is the one who caused it. And therefore, if one leaves, then you have too much space. Or if one joins and you need more space, you're allowed to go ahead and increase it.
Yo, quick question. I'm just a little confused. So this is regarding a enclosure on Shabbat. So, and what's a base sa'ah? What is that measurement? How big is it?
So we're talking about an area of a person. It's not his normal house or his yard. He's a traveler, okay? And he puts up these posts, right? Now, these posts are normally, there's more open space than not, but as long as they're close enough to one another, we say, since it's a temporary enclosure, therefore we allow you other area. But we don't want you to enclose too much area and say, all this area is mine. So a base saw, right, is learned out basically from the measurement of, I think it was from the Chutzner, which is 5,000. I think it's 50 by 100 was the courtyard in the base of Mikdash. So 50 amos by 100 amos is 5,000, right? So 5,000 square amos, that is the area. In order to go ahead and plant an area of 5,000 amos, you need 2 saw, right? 2 amounts of seed. So they refer to this area, this 5,000 amos squared, right, as a basis asayim, right? I'm not sure how many square feet, probably 1.5 times, maybe 7,500 square feet or so approximately is my guess.
So do you multiply that by 7? Because we said 7 is the maximum sa'ah in terms of how many amos?
So we said if there's more than 3 people, so you can take as much as the people's needs. However, right now it can be as big as it, but it can't be 2 base saw more than their needs. So if their needs are 5,000, they can't make something more than 7,000, right? That was one of the opinions before. That was the machlokas there. So that's what it says. You can't just enclose everything and say, okay, this is going to be our area where we can carry on Shabbos. So you can't do that. You can only have a little bit extra, not too much extra. And how much is that little bit? That was the machlokas we had before of, what does it have to be clear from? Is it clear from people? Is it clear from possessions? And so on and so forth. So now, in this case, the question is now, let's say you have people join you on Shabbos, middle of Shabbos. So do we say, we need more space now? Now we can use a larger area, or if someone leaves or if someone died, right? We don't need as much area. Is it too big now? Is it no longer good? So one opinion says, it depends. Whatever happened at the beginning of Shabbos, that's what we do. And the other opinion is, no. It depends on how many people there are now, right? So it can change over Shabbos. So Tistayim, the Rav Huna, who Damar Shabbos Goreves, it's logical to say that Rav Huna is the one who says that whatever happens at the onset of Shabbos is what you're stuck with. Damar Rabba, the Rabba says. So, Boy mi Rav Huna, the question is from Rav Huna, Boy mi Rav Yehuda, he asks from Rav Yehuda, Erev derech HaPesach. Let's say you have an Erev between 2 yards through a entranceway or V'nistayim, and it becomes closed off. V'nistayim Pesach, and the entrance was blocked off on Shabbos, or Der Chalon, or they had the Eruv, and they were able to go ahead and access. The reason their access was between the windows. V'nistayim Chalon, and the windows were then closed off. So now what's halacha there? So Amarli Shabbos hutra. Since can you pass it over the wall because no longer an eruv, right? Or can you pass it maybe through a small crack in the wall? So he says, since when Shabbos started, you had the eruv, right? The area was used between the two chatzeros was the entrance or the window, even though things changed over Shabbos. Friday nights was something that happened. Nevertheless, hutra. So therefore, once it was permitted, So tistain. So it makes sense. So now, going back to what we said before, so Rav Huna we're going to say, Rav Huna is the opinion who holds that if you started Shabbos with 3 people, so you had a larger area, let's say you had 5 base saw, right? As opposed to the maximum, if it was only 2 people, they could only have 2 base saw. So if it was 5 people, right? 3 people, right? So you have 5 base saw, and all of a sudden one of the people dies. So you don't say, no, we got to bring in the walls. You don't say that. Since Shabbos started, according to Rav Huna, therefore you still have the entire space. So Lema Rav Huna for Rabbi Yitzchak, but Pluksa the Rabbi Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say Rav Huna, Rabbi Yitzchak, whose machlok, as we just explained, is the same machlok as that of the 2 Tanaim Rabbi Yisrael and Rabbi Yehuda. Kimiflagi. The Tanai we learn in the Mishnah. It says of the chatzah shenifet samishtei ruchasel. If you have a chatzah and its wall broke in the corner, so you're basically losing 2 walls. V'chein bayis shenifrash misei ruchasayv. Also to a house, if it broke from those 2 corners, and therefore in a corner, and therefore it's like it lost 2 walls. V'chein mavi shenita karasav. Or let's say you had a mavu, and the beam fell down on Shabbos, or a lechin, or let's say you had a lechis, and the lechi was removed on Shabbos. Mutarin le'oisa Shabbos. It's mutter to still carry that Shabbos. In other words, same thing. Since Shabbos started and it was mutter to carry, which is going to be that opinion, like Rav Huna, so too you can continue to carry on Shabbos. However, but in future next Shabbos, it's not going to be good anymore unless you go ahead and fix it. And Rabbi Yossi says, if it's mutter now, it's mutter later on. If it's mutter later on, it's mutter now. However, if it's going to be usser, right, next Shabbos, i.e. because the beam just fell. So therefore, as soon as Shabbos, therefore it's usher to carry now. So therefore, circumstances changes even in the middle of Shabbos. So Lema Rav Huna Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say Rav Huna is like the first opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda Dama Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi would say like Rabbi Yossi. So Rav Huna says no. I could hold even like Rabbi Yossi. And as Ad Kan Lo Yikamen Rabbi Yossi Hasan. The only reason why Rabbi Yossi said over there when it came to by the Eruv or something, El the lesson of Mechitzos, because over there, let's say the walls fell down. However, Hacha, but over here, Yisnu Mechitzos. But over here, we have the walls. We just have, one of the people died, or we had a new person joined. So therefore, the walls are still there. There's no reason why the walls should not remain, and therefore, maybe Rabbi Yossi would agree with me. For Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yitzchak would say, Rabbi Yehuda. I can say like Rabbi Yehuda. Over there, the reason why Rabbi Yehuda permitted the whole entire area because they had people there. However, but over here there was no change. Over here, there's less people. If there's less people, therefore you don't need the amount of carrying, and therefore, since the people change, therefore perhaps you would also change the halachic status of carrying throughout, or extending it or decreasing the amount of space.
Before we go on to the Anaya Mishnah, this is a total separate thing, but in that base Sa'ah area, we talked about someone dying during Shabbat. So would we try to bring them out of the base Sa'ah area during Shabbos or leave them in there? I know there's no ohel, so it's a different concept, but we try to get them out of our little tented area, not a tent, but our little kind of segregated Shabbos area.
We push off halachas of muksa and derabbanans for kavod brios. Right, we don't bury on Shabbos,
right?
But we do if there's a machlokes as to whether we override in terms of muksa, right? Some people says that a body is muksa, and then in order to move a body, you would have to put something else onto the body for a bus.
Right. We learned that challah or whatever.
Right, or a baby, right? So the question, right? So the question really remains is that if it was something was happening to the body and for the issue of covered brios, then it should be movable. But otherwise, it really wouldn't be permitted to go ahead and to move it unless
we also talked about you bring them to the end of the I forgot Rosh Hashanah or whatever it was to the very end. We learned that in Shabbos.
Well, to go there, right? In order to go to the end of where you can carry, in order to be there, provided on Shabbos, or
right. So, but in this case of the base, we talked about we had 2, and we had 3, so there was kosher. 1 died. We just leave them there until after Shabbos. That's what we're
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine.
Okay, great.
And finally, we said so we had machlokas at the end of whether a fence needs to be both has horizontal parts and vertical parts, or one or the other. Chachamim said one or the other. So the Gemara says either or. So hainu Tanakama. So that's the Tanakama. Before we said that's the same thing as the Tanakama. So yachid b'yishuv. The difference is yachid b'yishuv. In other words, if you have a yachid who lives in a yishuv, in other words, he lives in a settlement, so maybe we don't go ahead and have either one. Maybe you can't go ahead and use these temporary structure, right? Like we just said, these halachas we had were really for somebody who's traveling for caravans that were more mekel, but maybe for a yachid would not be able to use this. So according to the Tanakama, a yachid would not be able to use these leniencies, but according to this last opinion, that even a yachid can use these as long as it's small enough in terms of the space that he's enclosing with these with these bad walls. Fine. Naya Mishnah. The last Mishnah of the parak. Arba dvarim patru b'machane. There are 4 things they pattered b'machane, right? In a machane, as Rashi says, hayotzes lemachama, when they're going out to war. So a bunch of things they permitted for war. Maybe in eitzin, mikol makom, you can go ahead and bring wood. If you find wood, you can go ahead and take wood, even though it might be somebody else's. But you need it for fuel. Upturim min rechitzas yadayim, they're pater from washing hands. Umi demai, and also that we're making the halachas of demai, which is basically you purchase produce from Nama'aret, so you still have to be separate shumas and maestros. We allow you to go ahead and do without doing that. Or actually just meister, not truma, because truma they're believed to have taken. Umil arev, and also an erev. Erev also, all these halachas, since they're going at a mechamas rishus, we were relaxed in some of these derabanan laws. Now let's see. So Tana Rabbanan, Machna says the mechamas rishus. If you have they're in camp, let's say for a mechamas rishus, right? Mechamas rishus is something which is not a mechamas mitzvah, perhaps not to something to extend the borders, not necessarily if lives are at stake or the security of the Jewish people, but perhaps it just means to enlarge the borders. Mutarin begezel eitzim yivation. You're allowed to go ahead and take wood that's dry wood. Now, even normally dry wood is probably saved by somebody else who's going to use it, right? As dry wood as opposed to wet wood. Nevertheless, they're allowed to go ahead and take it for fuel. Rabbi Yehuda he says also over there in this brisa, you could even sleep wherever you want, in camp wherever you want, even in I guess private property, right? And you can camp there. And also you can go ahead and bury a body, right, where you find the body. We'll have to explain this. So first of all, it says so hi takanas de Yoshua. What wasn't that takana made by Yoshua? The Mar Asara Tanaim, he's not Yoshua. There were 10 stipulations that Yoshua made. Marin b'chorsh, so he's in other words, when they were going out to war, shayu marin b'chorsh, and they can go ahead and have their animals graze out in the area. Basically, even though it's on private property, like out in the forest, large property someone has, you have acres, so you can go ahead and out there. It's not necessarily someone's using it to plant, so therefore you can go ahead and there's open fields. You can have your animals graze there. Locked in eitzin, and you can also go ahead and gather wood from their forests also. So we see you're allowed to do it. So hasam maybe over there that was referring to maybe small little bushes. However, but over here was other different types of wood. Inami or hasam over there maybe it was talking about stuff which is still attached to the ground. that was attached to the ground. However, hacha b'telushim over here was stuff that was already cut. Maybe since it was cut, it was going to be used by the owner. So therefore, that's the halacha was here. Or Yanami, or you can say hasa belachin over there was talking about wet wood. People typically don't use wet wood because it doesn't, it takes longer to burn and so on and so forth. However, halachivation over here, even dry wood, something which is readily available to the owner. Therefore, you can go ahead and they were makel that if they find dry wood out there, then they go ahead and use it.
Are you just referring to plunders of war?
Not necessarily similar, right? I mean, they weren't attacking this area, but they were,
utilizing its resources.
Exactly, right.
I see.
So, and Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema Omer, Af Chayim B'Chol Makom, you can also go ahead and sleep at anywhere. Makom Shanagim, and we said Makom Shanagim Sham Nigvar. So, Gemara says Pshita Meis Mitzvah, U'Meis Mitzvah Kainu B'Kaimo. It's a Meis Mitzvah, right? Meis Mitzvah. The person dies out of war, so he's kaina mekaima. He acquires that spot. You can bury him in that spot. So what does it mean you can bury him? We already know he's a meis mitzvah. So God says no. Afal gav the east bay kaiver. Even if he has relatives, he has yorshim, he has inheritors who are responsible for his burial. And normally if they're responsible for his burial, so therefore they have to go ahead and bury him in their place, right? A meis mitzvah is somebody who has no one to bury him. So therefore you bury him where you find him. So even though that this person has relatives, you can still go ahead and bury him in that space, even though it's in someone's private yard. So the Tanya, we're going to say meis mitzvah, kol shein lo kaiven. What is a meis mitzvah? Somebody who doesn't have people to bury him. However, karev acherem so ain't a meis mitzvah. But if you call out and say, hey, this person died, any relatives? He's got money. Anybody related to him? And these people answer, yeah, we're related to him. I'm his nephew. I'm his son. Whatever it is, that is not a meis mitzvah. So why is this not a meis mitzvah? Well, meis mitzvah kainam and kainam. Does meis mitzvah actually require all the time the space where he was found? But time in the Bryce hamaitzi meis mutal basaratia. One who goes ahead and he finds a mace, a dead body, who's out in the stratia. Stratia we says is rishus harabim, out in the public way. So you have to move him out of the public way, bury him either to the right or to the left. Let's say one side is a empty field and the other side is a field that was just plowed. So which field should you move it over? So go ahead and move in the field that nothing was done yet, right? Because since it wasn't really, no one really, used that field yet, even though it might be private property, since someone didn't put effort into it yet, therefore you can go ahead and you should move the body there and bury the body there. And sudden near beside zera. One, let's say one is just plowed, the other one was plowed and also planted. Near, go ahead and move to the plowed field. And how you stay in niros, or stay in zuros, or stay in baros. If both of them were plowed, both of them were seeded, or both of them were just left empty. You can move it to any side you want. So what do we see from this brisa? So we see that it's not always kanim and kaimo, that you can. There are times where you move the meis mitzvah, especially if you find them out in the stratio. So Amarav Bibi Hacha b'meis mutal ala meitzer askin. Over here, we're talking about that he's basically found between on the boundary and the borders. And since once you're allowed to move him, then you can move him to either way, either place. So now we're not saying you come go over there, but once you go ahead and move it, then you can move it to any place, even a private domain. And we say, you're also potter from washing hands. So we're only talking about mayim rishonim. But in terms of mayim achronim, afterwards, then that they still have to go ahead and do mayim achronim before they go ahead and bench. Right, and when they're done with the meals. And Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi, mipnei ma'amru mayim achronim chayva, mipnei shemaf sedoim say shem mesamis enayim. Mayim chayva is not something like a mitzvah, right? Mayim achronim was instituted in order to protect people from the salt, right? From the melech sedoimis, right? The salt from Sodom, that if you rub your eyes with it, you can blind yourself. So that's the reason why they did it. So Amar Abaye umeshachach bekurta bekura, right? And you have that, if you have how much salt is on your hands, it's only if you have even a small amount in a kur. In other words, very small amount from a large kur, even that one piece from a large kur can be blinding, and therefore we obligate mayim achronim. And Amar lei Rav Acha berei de Rav Rav Ashi. So kal milchamai. What a person is, let's say he doesn't eat, but let's say he's just going ahead and he's measuring out salt, or he's dealing with salt. Amar lei how loy boy, right? right? In other words, this shouldn't be asked because, of course, a person should go ahead and wash his hands in order, do my machronim, even though he didn't technically eat, he was dealing with salt. Therefore, nevertheless, he should go ahead and make sure his hands are clean. And then we say, "Is pater fa mi demai." So the Mishnah says, or this Bryce said, Mishnah said mi demai. The Tanan machlinas ani im demai v'sachsania demai. Right? One's allowed to go ahead, according to this opinion, go ahead and feed poor people demai. So like demai, right? Some of it, more of it, it has to be given to chumas ma'asos. But let's say it's a poor person, so here, take it. You don't. We're makil. You can go ahead and have it all, Mr. Poor Person, Mr. Ani. Or chsani, or a guest, as in Amar Rav Huna has a Tana. So Rav Huna, how we're taught, Beis Shammai yomim ein machlis aniyim demai v'esach chsani demai. According to Beis Shammai, we are not allowed to feed a poor person demai or a guest demai. Beis Hillel yomim machlis aniyim demai v'esach chsani demai. But however, Beis Hillel was like the previous brisa that says we do go ahead and feed them demai. And then we finally said in the Arev, and it says also the people are out to war. Right, so they're pater from eruv. So amru debei Rabbi Yani lo shano el eruv chatzeros. We're talking about eruv chatzeros that they don't have to go ahead and make an eruv chatzeros. About eruv tchumen, but when it comes to basically extending the borders of Shabbos, so 2,000 amos, then chayav, and then they have to go ahead if they want to go ahead and travel beyond that. Why? The Tani Rabbi Chia likin al eruv tchumen dvar Torah. You get malchus for a tchum because tchumen is daraisa. So if it's a daraisa, so therefore we're not lax than Mechamas Rishus when it comes to daraisas. So I'm asking for Rabbi Yonis and V'chiloikin alav she'ba'al. Right? What do you mean? Why did you get malchus there? Right? Is this, in other words, that the pasuk says, right? This is since it says al, right? You shouldn't do, right? So since it's a loisase, right? So do you get malchus al lav shebe'af, right? In other words, in this case, that in this, right? So over here, one second. So the question is, when it comes to tchumen, right? So since there's a lav shenisan lazaris mises based in, right? So no, we didn't get it. One said it's the wrong Rashi. So he said over here. So in this case, so it said over there. Right, so the chiloikin alav shaval. Do you go ahead and get lav for tchum? In other words, the Gemara is questioning whether the person who violates tchum Shabbos gets malchus. So maskev Rav Acha Bar Yaakov El Miata because of al tifna alav is vayidunim. So you're saying you don't get malchus for something. The Torah just uses the word al. Don't. It doesn't say lo. Right? It says al. Don't. So you're telling me the word al just because it says al that you shouldn't get malchus. What about the lav of oiviaduni, right? Which is black magic, right? Black magic. Is the Torah uses the lashon of al, right? Al tifna oivas v'al, and over there we know you get malchus for. So why shouldn't you get malchus for tchumen? So achinami delay lucky. So over here you're going to say you don't get malchus. Of course you do. So he says no. Rabbi achinami delay lucky. So Rabbi Yonis and Hachikash. So Rabbi Yonis, this is what he meant to say. Lav shenisin lazaris misas base. It wasn't a lav that we're talking about al. It was talking about a lav shenisin lazaris misas base. If you have an al or a loisa say in the Torah that's used as a warning for based into putting you to death and says don't do this because you can be put to death. So that don't do it basically is also a lav, but it's not a lav that we can go ahead and punish you with lashes. The whole lav shenisan is based in ain't loikin a lav, and therefore this is considered to be an al, right? When it says over here to go out, past the tchum, right? So it says. So this is considered to be, maybe this is the al, right? This is the warning for the Mises Basin of Shabbos. So it's Ravashi, Miksiv al Yaitse, right? Does it say al Yaitse, right? It's the pasuk says al Yaitse Ishmim Kamo, right? It says al Yaitse, and since it says al Yaitse, not al Yaitse, therefore we say that this is, even though this is used as a warning, right? It could also be something which we can go ahead, according to this opinion, and administer malchus because of it. So Hadran Allah Mavui. So now we finished the first parak of Maseches Eruvin. What time is it now? All right, well, I guess we'll stop here. All right, we'll stop here. So even though we stepped a little short in tomorrow's Thursday, but we'll try and get moving tomorrow. We'll deal with Pasti Biros. So we'll get moving. We might fall a little bit behind, but it'll be a good time. We'll continue tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Everyone have a wonderful day. I'll see you. Bye-bye.